Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us for another LinkedIn broadcast on Sanctions and Export Controls. My name is Alexander Witt, and I'm a Sanctions and Export Controls consultant with ACSS, the Association of Certified Sanctions Specialists. Please visit our website if you don't know us yet and you would like to become certified as a sanctions specialist. We have a very good certification program for you if you haven't done so yet, if you're not a CSS yet. And we have a lot of webinars coming up, which you can sign up for. Some of those webinars are for free, others are just for members. So please visit our website for all upcoming events. Today, I would like to discuss with you 5 news that I picked up last week, which I found really interesting and I wanted to share with you today. We will discuss the following 5 topics today. In a new report, the US Government Accountability Office, GAO, recommended that the State Department needs to improve compliance data to enhance oversight of defense services. The US restricts its licensing policy concerning Huawei and adds the Netherlands and Japan as allies to technology controls. The UK Export Control Joint Unit updated its guidance on supplying professional and business services to a person connected with Russia. The US allows for humanitarian activities concerning Syria, despite the Syria sanctions. And the US and the UK sanction former Bulgarian politicians and Bulgaria's richest man over corruption. These are the 5 topics that I will discuss with you today. Let's begin with the first one. On Monday, the 6th of February, the US Government Accountability Office, or GAO, published a report entitled State Needs to Improve Compliance Data to Enhance Oversight of Defense Services. For those of you who don't know GAO, the GAO provides fact-based, nonpartisan information to Congress. Often called the Congressional Watchdog, GAO investigates federal spending and performance. In its report, GAO states, US companies or individuals that sell certain defense services, like military training, to foreign buyers often need permission first from the State Department, which enforces the US International Arms Trafficking Regulations, ITA. According to State, from 2013 to 2021, State received over 8,500 voluntary disclosures of potential regulation violations from exporters. However, State told GAO that it could not readily provide GAO with data from its compliance database on how many of these disclosures or potential violations involved defense services. According to State officials, State could not specify the number of cases related to potential ITA violations for defense services in both the compliance case management system and its predecessor system. According to State officials, State has limitations in its internal information and technology mechanism used to tag cases and in the mechanism used to collect information on violations from the regulated community. As a result, GAO found that State may not be able to readily use this data to assess trends or risks related to the export of defense services. State officials said they plan to develop procedures to improve data entry and quality, but were unable to provide GAO with documentation of these plans. State also plans to implement an online application that would improve the accuracy of disclosure submissions, but has not yet established a definitive time frame for implementing the application. So if you are dealing with ITA license applications, be ready for some updates coming from State and the DDTC this year. Our second highlight for today: the US restricts its licensing policy concerning Huawei and adds the Netherlands and Japan as allies to those technology controls. According to recent reports, the US Department of Commerce Bureau of Industry and Security, BIS, has stopped granting export licenses to Huawei Technologies Co., or Huawei. The US government has long sought to restrict Huawei's access to advanced US computer chips used to power 5G networks and related technological applications. Under the current export restrictions against Huawei, BIS still had been granting certain export license requests for items falling below the 5G capability threshold, such as items designed for 4G application, Wi-Fi 6 and 7, and certain cloud computing items. Now, US suppliers likely can expect most, if not all, Huawei-related license applications to be denied, as the Biden administration seeks to completely close off the Chinese telecom's access to US technology. The Netherlands and Japan also moved to impose US-style restrictions on semiconductor exports to China. Japan and the Netherlands have reportedly agreed to join US efforts to impose similar export restrictions. According to the report, both countries will join banning machines capable of making 14 nanometer and more advanced chips to China. Both Japan and the Netherlands are important players in the development of the semiconductor technology and manufacturing. Our third item for today. On Tuesday last week, the 7th of February, the UK Export Control Joint Unit, ECJGU, updated its guidance on supplying professional and business services to a person connected with Russia. If you remember, in July last year, the UK prohibited any UK persons anywhere and other persons in the UK from providing accounting, business and management consultancy and public relations services to a person connected with Russia. Later that year, on the 16th of December, the UK prohibited UK persons and other persons in the UK from providing advertising, architectural, auditing, engineering, and IT consultancy and design services to a person connected with Russia. The difficulty for accountants, auditors, and their compliance departments is unlikely to be assessing whether or not they are providing services which satisfy these definitions, which you can find in the new guidance. Rather, the difficulty will be identifying whether the individual or entity that they are dealing with might be considered to be a person connected to or with Russia. In that regard, please register for our ACSS webinar with KPMG on Thursday on OFAC's 50% rule, which will discuss from a US perspective what happens to sanctioned persons and the 50% rule of OFAC. Please consult the new guidance by the UK on their website for the definitions of these services, including advertising services, architectural and engineering services, auditing services, and IT consultancy and design services, if you are providing such services from the UK to anyone connected with Russia. Our fourth update today comes related to the tragic events that happened last week in Turkey and Syria. On Thursday, the 8th of February, the US eased sanctions on Syria to allow the flow of humanitarian assistance following the deadly earthquakes that hit southern Turkey, which affected both communities in Turkey and Syria. Treasury's Office of Foreign Assets Control, OFAC, issued Syria General License 23, which authorizes for 180 days all transactions related to earthquake relief that would be otherwise prohibited by the Syrian sanctions regulations. If persons, including financial institutions, are engaged in disaster relief activities for Syria, but they believe their activities are not covered by existing authorizations or exemptions, those persons are encouraged to contact OFAC directly to seek specific license or guidance at OFAC_feedback@treasury.gov. And our last update for today came in on Friday last week, the 10th of February, when the UK and the US, together in a coordinated effort, sanctioned multiple Bulgarian politicians and also the wealthiest Bulgarian person over corruption. On Friday, the 10th of February, the United States, in coordination with the UK, took action to counter systemic corruption in Bulgaria by designating 5 former Bulgarian government officials as well as 5 entities for corrupt acts that resulted in illicit personal gain, undermined the country's democratic institutions, and perpetuated its corrosive dependence on Russian energy sources. By the way, this is not the first time the US sanctioned Bulgarian individuals and entities. In June 2021, Treasury sanctioned 3 Bulgarian individuals for their extensive roles in corruption in Bulgaria, as well as their networks, combining 64 entities. The June 2021 designations constituted the largest global Magnitsky action taking on a single day in the history of the program, targeting over 65 individuals and entities for the significant acts of corruption in Bulgaria. And I checked the SDN list today, and as of today, the SDN list by OFAC includes 9 Bulgarian individuals and 72 Bulgarian entities connected to these individuals. Washington sanctioned 5 former Bulgarian officials and 5 entities controlled by 2 of them. London banned the entry into Britain and imposed an assets freeze on 3 other Bulgarians, all targeted by the US in 2021, including Vasil Boshkov, the country's wealthiest man. Among those others sanctioned was Rumen Avcharov, a former energy minister and lawmaker, who repeatedly engaged in corrupt energy contracts with Russian energy firms, accepting bribes in return for fixed-price deals with Russian gas, nuclear fuel, and support for the Kozloduy nuclear power plant, KNPP, Bulgaria's sole nuclear facility, the statement said. I hope you enjoyed today's broadcast. These were the 5 things that I picked up for today's broadcast that I found really interesting. Of course, there have been many more updates last week from the EU, the US, the UK. I hope you were up to date on the other updates. Thank you very much for joining us today. As I mentioned, we have a couple of ACSS webinars coming up for you. All of them free for ACSS members and some also free for non-ACSS members. Please visit our website to see a list of the upcoming webinars, which I will be moderating. And also visit our website for our certificate courses on EU, UK, and OFAC sanctions. And we also have a conference coming up in Europe in May on sanctions and export controls. So please visit our website for more information on our European conference. Thank you everyone for joining today, and please share this video broadcast with your colleagues and friends who also need an update on sanctions and export controls. And hopefully we will see you next Monday at the same time for our next LinkedIn broadcast. Thank you everyone, and have a good day.